So today we're talking about time, actually. We're talking about time and making time to celebrate. You know, if we keep looking down the road at what we're going for, we won't ever take the time to just be in the now and celebrate how far we've come. I gotta celebrate today. I mean, this is so freaking awesome. Kathy Richardson singing a song for us in a chapel in Hinsdale. I mean, I don't know about you. There have been hours in my life where, like, they weren't anything like this, you know? So this is good. There have been Sunday mornings that I just, wasn't ready for the light, if you know what I mean. So we are celebrating and talking about time. And in A Course in Miracles, it says that, well, we all know the idea that patience is the virtue of kings, right? Patience is the virtue of kings, and you and I are kings and queens of SpeakEasy, right? So if we really want to embody that audaciousness, we should probably get a little friendly with the idea of patience and allowing ourselves to be the boss of time and not have time be the boss of us. And that's what's running us ragged. It says in A Course in Miracles, those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety. Those who are certain of the outcome, right? Yeah. Can afford to wait. Look, you got to wait. So wait without anxiety.
I actually want to celebrate. I think I found some patience for the last week. I'm 32 weeks now. Finally, I think I found some.
If you can do it, that means we all can do it. Because I know how it is to be at the end of a pregnancy when you're just like, all right, we're ready. So for those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety. Patience is natural to the teachers of God, and it says that teachers of God see everything, the certain outcome, and that they don't experience anxiety over it. I think that's so awesome. Like, wouldn't that be nice? So I had this really funny story when I was a little kid. I kind of saw this in action. My parents, they would never go on dates. They had 8 kids, and that whole thing, like, there's not enough time, and they put all their kids before them. They never go on dates. But when they did go on dates, it was like, Christmas, Hanukkah, and everything else rolled into one. Like, they were like, we're going on a date! And my mom would go upstairs, and she would get gussied up. You know what I'm talking about? Like, literally, hats were involved. And she would come down the stairs, and we would be, like, in awe, because my mother, she sported, like, a house dress with pancake mess all over it. You know what I mean? This was her thing, with 8 kids. You can't really blame her, but she would come down, head to toe, gussied up, and she had this walk. Like, she would literally walk like this. Like, not only a different person, but she literally had a different personality when she was dressed up. We were like, who is this person? And we'd sit on the couch and we'd go, twirl, twirl, And so they went on a date this one time. We were a little bit older, and they went out the door, and about 20 minutes later, what turned out to be my brother-in-law comes up the walkway. He was just my sister's boyfriend at the time, and he's like, you'll never believe what I just saw. And we're like, what? And he's like, I come up to the house, and your dad's sitting in the old green van, and I say to him, hey, Mr. Pearson, what are you doing? And he says, oh, we're going on a date. I'm waiting for my wife to come out. And he goes, oh, that's nice. And he goes, and I started walking up the walkway to the house, and I look at the corner of my eye, and I see in the white car in the driveway, your mom's sitting there. And he goes, hey, Miss Pearson, what are you doing? She's like, oh, we're going on a date. I'm waiting for my husband to come out. 20 freaking minutes they're sitting there, and we stand in the window, and we look at them, and we're like, somebody's going to tell them. You know what I mean? But the beautiful thing is there was no honking involved. There was no anxiety. There was no like, what the hell? Why aren't you here already? They were both perfectly enjoying their space in the car because they knew that their good was coming. I think that's really awesome. I mean, if we could cultivate that joyful expectancy and know that if we're waiting in the car, there must be something there for us, I mean, this is what we do not do. We wait and we go, we're intolerant of waiting. We're intolerant of patience. And yet, that patience and that waiting, miracles happen in that time span. Miracles happen. It's where we're saying, time, you're not the boss of me. I'm enjoying myself wherever I am. So teachers of God, we're all teachers of God. It says in A Course in Miracles, you get to be a teacher of God. And you know how you get to be that? If you decide. That's it. That's the prerequisite. Isn't that awesome? And I like that we're in a community where we're just like, you know what? we're all teachers of God. You're my teacher, I'm your teacher, you're his teacher, he's your teacher, she's your teacher. We're all teachers of God. And we all get, the simple thing is to decide it. We decide what? We get to decide that our interests are not separate from anyone else's. That our good is their good. If we decide that our interest is not separate from anyone else, not only will we be blessed, but instantaneously a path rolls out before us that tells us where to go, what to do, and what to say. And we no longer have to rush for it or try and promote it or trying to get something to happen, because we've already decided that we're on the plan of God. You talk about the David plan. We're on the plan of God, and we go at the pace of peace. And there is no rush and worry in God's plan. There is no rush and hurry in God's plan, believe it or not. That's kind of audacious, I think, anyhow. So it says a light has entered. When we make this decision, a light has entered. Light has so many different connotations, but literally a lightness of being, like we're less encumbered with our plan. A light has entered, and it's just a small light, but it says it may be a single light, but that is enough. So, you have more than enough to do exactly what you're here to do. And every day we have the opportunity to choose that, to decide again, my thing is not separate from your thing. My win is your win. I want to live in a world where it's a win-win, where there's no, where I get what I get and I leave you in the dust. Like everything is oneness. When you talk about one love, like that's literally what we're talking about. Singing about it, talking about it is a great thing. Embodying it is like jumping the Grand Canyon. It's the difference between looking at a picture of the ocean and having your feet in the water. We got to get our feet in the water. Don't you think it's time? So the idea is that we're here to shed light on everything. We're bringers of light. And when you think about shedding light, like I immediately think about like cats that shed hair and snakes that shed skin. And we get to shed light. Leftover hair and leftover skin, it's really not that purposeful, but light? I could tell you a story about dog hair that someone tried to make something out of once, but I won't go there. She was going to make a business out of weaving dog hair. No, I'm not kidding. It was an insane thought, and we still laugh about it. I was like, so glad you didn't do that. Right, but we get to shed light. And the ego will say, your light is inadequate. It's just a little light. Like, you think that's going to make a difference? Your little light, it's so inadequate. It's a single light. It's not so important. What good is that going to do, your little light, It's so little. But the good news with light, the great news with light, size doesn't matter. Isn't that great? Size doesn't matter. That's really good news. The Course says it's enough, you're enough, there is enough, there's enough, there's enough, there's enough, there's enough, there's enough. This should tell us that it's no place to rush and worry, because there's more than enough. I can move like a king in patience, in grace. And there's a book called a piece of the gospel that was not put in the Bible. It's called The Gospel of Truth, and in it is one of my favorite lines I've ever written. It says, "This is the perfect day, and within you dwells a light that cannot fail." So that should breathe in, and if you use that affirmation, it really should inform you that this is a perfect day, and everything I'm brought through by the right of my consciousness, which says that I'm working for God, and where this is a win-win, and God doesn't play favorites. So I got to do so little here, except sit in the passenger seat and allow this thing to unfurl. And I don't have to, I can wait without anxiety. Like my parents in that car, like my good is coming, I'll just sit here and wait for it. I don't got any place else to go. I'm out in the driveway dressed up. Got my hat on. Somebody said that I should laugh at my jokes. I wish I could not laugh at my jokes. You don't have to promote or prove anything when you play the role that God has for you. You don't have to promote or prove anything. That should bring a degree of peace as well. And although the light seems so little at times, when the night is dark and when you hit a rough patch and when the chips are down, even though that light seems so little, it's actually everything. It's everything. It's everything. And I think that's important for us to know at times when things seem really dark. So, remember when you hit your dark patch, when you had a dark night of the soul, and it was like a simple gesture from a friend, a call that came at the right time, a door held open, a smile. Like those little simple kindnesses are the things that saved us. The little simple kindnesses. And so the ego might say to you, well, it's not going to make any difference. But you have no idea how wrong that is. That's the difference between hell and heaven. So there was a story that came about this kid. His name was Peter. And he was a high school student. He had a friend he didn't have a friend. He didn't have a friend at all, actually. He was a high school student, and he was kind of depressed, and he was a freshman, and he was new to the school, and he just felt so like an outcast. And he was a little overweight, and he just felt low self-esteem. He just felt really bad about himself. And he was next to this kid, Ralph, who had a locker next to him. And it was freshman year, it was towards the end of his freshman year, and he decided he was going to kill himself. So he went about making this plan to kill himself. And it was towards the very end of the year, like the last week, and he told this story recently, and we got to hear it. So sorry that I'm getting choked up, but I just think it's amazing what a little kindness will do. And he shut his locker door that day with plans to go home and end his life. And this kid, Ralph, was next to him. He'd been next to him the whole year. And this day, for whatever reason, Ralph shut his locker door, made eye contact with him, and said, "Hey, see you tomorrow." That was it. And he says, that little gesture, "Hey, see you tomorrow," that was it. The kid didn't even know that it meant anything, but for Peter, it meant everything. "Hey, see you tomorrow." Can you imagine 3 simpler words than that? If we were in a rush or a hurry, can you imagine that not happening? I mean, I don't want to think about the end of that version of the story, but that's what happens when we begin to rush around. So I had a similar story, actually, when I just recently, a couple of months ago, I might have shared this, but I was I got a phone call from Mark Anthony Lord, actually, and this other mutual friend. They're like, "Hey, Maureen, we're in California, and we're hanging out with this makeup artist, Mickey. You know Mickey, the makeup artist?" And I did know this guy named Mickey, who was a makeup artist. I'm like, "Oh, that English guy?" And they were like, No, Mickey. You know Mickey, the makeup guy who works on such and such a show, and you worked with him one time." And I was like, "Oh, I don't really remember." They're like, "Are you kidding me? He talked about you for like an hour, about how you gave him a keychain." And I was like, "I gave him a keychain." And then they started telling me the details, and it started to click back in place. And I remembered that I was on the set. It was during one of my last jobs. And I was in the green room waiting to go on, and the lead actress was late. And she showed up like a truck driver, angry, and she had the ability to curse unlike anything I'd ever heard before. I was stymied by the articulation of her vulgarity. I was like, whoa! The things she was doing with words, I was like, I did not know. I'm from New Jersey. I know my way around a few curse words. And I was like, this was like I was at the Olympics. And I was impressed, but I was also I was in fear. I was like, oh my God, what is going on in that room? It sounds horrible. She was in the makeup room, and I could hear everything. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to act with her in a scene. And I started thinking, oh my God, if I drop a line or if I flub a cue, she's going to rip me open. That's what I was thinking. So I started thinking, I'm doing the only thing I know how to do is I just started to pray the affirmative prayer. And thank God I had that. So I started to pray the affirmative prayer. I know that God is all there is, and I'm one with God, and there's peace and articulation and creativity. It's all going to be good and beautiful and holy, and I can get through this. God brings me to it, and I'm a light shower, and I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be full asleep to this. This is no big thing, So I go into the makeup room after she's gone, and by the way, my interaction with her turned out to be fine. She was like a little kitten with me. Who knew? So, but I go into the makeup area, and these 2 guys are there, and it's like they're like abused orphans. They can hardly make eye contact. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is horrible. And I start to talk to one guy, Mickey, and we start talking, and I guess I started telling him some things that I know to be true, with God, all things are possible, and you don't have to stay in a relationship that's really abusive. To tell you the truth, I don't remember what the hell I said to him, but all I know is that I felt moved to give him something, and the only thing I had to give him was this keychain that I had just gotten a few days before that, and it said, "This is the best day of the rest of your life." And these people on the phone were like, "Maureen, he uses that keychain every day. You made such an impact on him." I know. But we don't always get to see the outcome of all those kindnesses. I just happen to get to see it, but there's probably a million of those that you've done in your life that you don't even get to see all of the times that you've helped somebody not go home and go through with a plan that had no drop of creativity in it. So that's what we need to know when we take the time to love and be loved, that we're literally causing miracles all over the place. We don't always get to see it. So that's why I wanted to share you those stories. Aristotle says that we live in deeds, not in years, in thoughts, not in breaths, in feelings, not in figures on the dial. We should count time by heartthrobs. He who most lives thinks the most, feels the most, and acts the best. So, that's how we can live. It's just by being our best self in this moment to the highest degree that we can. The light that dwells within you has infinite power to heal. I think that's audacious to remember that. The light that dwells within you that you think is a little light has infinite power to heal. And this light, this little light, it's not so little at all. It's infinite. So the way to activate this light within each of us, take the time to do the things that you love and take the time to love each other. Take the time to do that. One of the kindest things you can do for yourself is take time. In this world that begs us to rush and to hurry, be bold enough to take your sweet time. What's the worst that can happen, right? Especially with decision making. I have this great tool for you. Oh my God, I was such a horrible decision maker because everything was knee-jerk reaction. And by the time I got into 12-step, I had just really hit so many bottoms with bad decisions. I needed a tool. And thank God somebody gave me this tool and she said to me, Maureen, the next time someone calls you to ask you to do something, I want you to say these words. Let me sleep on it. Give me a day. Because oh, what a difference a day makes. And I was like, I have the right to do that? Like I was a people pleaser. I was run by guilt and fear. Like if I didn't have the right answer immediately, you were going to think I was bad. You were going to think less of me. I was like, I have the right to do that? And I was like, okay, let's give it a try. My husband and I, my former husband and I, we danced this dance. Anytime he got on the phone, he could pull my puppet strings and I was off dancing, And so I tried it out on him and he asked me something, what are you going to do about this and how are we going to do this? And normally I'd go, just do whatever you want and I wouldn't include myself in the equation. But this time I said, well, let me think about it. And he was like, what? He was like, no, we need to know right now. And I was like, well, it's going to have to wait till tomorrow. I need to think about it. And he was like, what do you mean you need to think about it? Very disturbing for him, this new script. He didn't know who I was. He had known who I was all those other years, and I kept playing into the same damn script. But if I wanted a different outcome, I had to be willing to play a different part. So it was really nice, because then I got to actually think about it. And then I started to make decisions that included me and that included other people. And that wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction from guilt or fear or lack. It wasn't a rush job, right? And then I knew it was working when the day came that I asked him something. And I said, come on, I've got to figure this out. Like, give me the answer. And he said, well, let me sleep on it. And I was like, that's my line. But really, there was a place within me that was like, oh my gosh. Like, our son is going to have two conscious parents who are willing to take the time to actually make appropriate decisions and move in, consciousness as opposed to blindly deciding things. So I knew that this was a blessing, even though I didn't like it thrown back at me. So the ego speaks first and loudest, and that's why we have to take our time. The ego speaks first and loudest, but infinite patience delivers immediate results. Is that true? Infinite patience delivers immediate results? Yeah, it is true, but you're going to have to try that out. The next time that you feel like you're rushed for something, see what it would feel like to take your time with it. And when you apply that to your life, you're going to see miracles. And who doesn't want that? Immediate results. So if you take your time, you will actually gain greatness if you take your time. If you take your time, you will show time who the boss is. Time's not the boss of you. If you take your time, you'll inform the universe that you're a time millionaire. Also, if you take your time, something that needs to get done in God's world is not going to get done in rush or worry. Do you not think that God is smart enough to give you enough time to get done what God wants you to get done? I mean, God isn't like, come on, hurry up, flowers, hurry up, sunrise, come on, get this shit done. It's like, you're the same, There's more than enough time for the flowers. They take their god-awful time. You're like, come on, spring. And they're like, oh, no, just coming up. I'm coming up. The sunrise is the same thing. Watching a pot boil. It's just like, okay, come on, get the microwave already. My old minister, actually, Mark Anthony Lord, I think it was, said, friendship cannot be microwaved. Anything good cannot be microwaved, So let's see if we can this week, step back and to experience a greater degree of spaciousness and generosity around our time. The fear of not having makes us do really stupid things. The fear of not having enough time makes us do really jackass things, right? And do we want to be the joker or the king? Like, that's what we get to decide. Do we want to be the joker or the king? If Ralph was in a hurry, imagine that. Imagine what would have happened. Actually, don't imagine that. Listen, love extends itself, and fear constricts. And fear is conditional, and time is conditional. But love extends itself and moves beyond time. And when you say, I'm moving in the time of love, I'm moving at the pace of love, I'm moving at the pace of peace, doors will open up. Shortcuts will be revealed to you beyond what you could even know to ask for. And that's just the whole and holy truth. So I love that. I love the beginning line that I started with, about the lack of anxiety that comes when you recognize that you live in timelessness. And it comes because we know here that God answers prayers in 3 ways. God says, yes, my beloved, of course I'm going to bring this to you. Or God says, not right now. Just not right now. Just hold on. I'm still cooking. It's still cooking, Or God says, I know that you want that, but I got something even better for you. So those are the 3 ways that God answers prayer. So the only part that we have to play in that is patience. Can we be patient with God and activate that kid at Christmas Eve, joyful expectancy, that going out on a date with my husband, joyful expectancy, and just wait in the car a little bit and not get all agitated and honk the horn and start screaming and sweating, right? I mean, could we try to move in grace a little bit? So look to the river. It flows and it knows not only where it will get to, but it also enjoys where it's at. And if you have patience, you have everything. Don't let the rush and the hurry rob you from the magnificence of the now. The now is everything. As an artist, you know this. Being in the now is everything. So pay attention to the beauty of now. And now will heal you and heal everyone around you. And remember that everything is so much better in the morning, unless you're hungover, but early. And then it's the next morning, and everything is so much better. At least for me, it could be 3 mornings, but everything is so much better in the morning light. Everything is so much more clear in the morning light. So give yourself the time to sleep on it, because what a difference a day makes. A day makes all the difference in the world. That's what a difference a day makes. It makes all the difference in the world. So what do you think? I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, or you can go ahead and sign up for our newsletter at SpeakEasySpiritualCommunity.com so we can keep the conversation going. Because SpeakEasy is all about engaging in engaging conversations. Everything is better when we all share our voice. I'm Maureen Muldoon, your Spiritual Vixen, reminding you to love more and fear less, and don't forget to laugh. What do you say?